everyone who is joining. Hello, everyone who is joining us. We're just going to wait a few minutes to see if there is anyone who is just finishing class and trying to log on. So we'll get started in a little bit, but just hang tight for right now. And thanks for joining us. So again, welcome everyone to our Diversity and Engineering Alumni Panel. Where do we go from here? We're just going to give everyone a few minutes to log on, just in the event that they finish class and are racing to their computers. So just hang tight for a little bit. Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Kelsey and I am the recruitment coordinator here with the Faculty of Engineering at Western University. And I've had the esteemed pleasure of planning today's National Engineering Month panel. I am excited for all of you to participate and to learn and hear from some of our alumni as they have great experiences and are eager to share it with all of you today. So just as an agenda for what today will look like, we will be doing a land acknowledgement. I will spend some time introducing our 6 panelists, and then it will be our Q&A section. The hope for this is that those questions are guided by all of you because I want our conversation to be what you all really need and want to get out of today's session. So if you have a question, please feel free to type it in the chat. You can raise your hand and unmute yourself if you'd like, whatever you feel most comfortable with. So I would like to start off with a land acknowledgement. This is one of my favorite maps from nativeland.ca. We acknowledge that Western University is located on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lunawapuk, and Chanaguntan nations on lands connected with the London Township and Somber Treaties of 1796 and the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum. This land continues to be home to diverse Indigenous peoples, whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and virtual contributors to our society. Now, I always like to personalize it a little bit and talk about my experience and more so where I grew up. So I grew up on the treaty territory of the Mississauga of the Credit as a settler, but I would say that most of my learnings have happened from my position here at Western and even as a student. So really learning from the communities that we work with within Western Engineering Outreach. So Aamjiwnaang First Nation, Walpole Island, Chippewa of the Thames, Oneida Nation of the Thames, Six Nations, Mississauga of the New Credit, and they have taught me a lot about how to proceed as a valued individual of our community, but also how to respect and learn from the land. So next, I'm just going to spend some time introducing each one of our alumni, and then we'll be able to hand it over to all of them for our Q&A panel. So up first, we have E.C. George. She's a graduate of mechanical engineering in 2014. During her time at Western, she served as president of the UES in 2011 and 2012, and was a proud member of the Western Formula racing team. It was through the team that she discovered her interest in aerodynamics and was inspired to pursue higher education. After completing a master's in aerospace engineering at Ryerson, she went on to work for Bombardier Aerospace in Toronto. She currently works at CAE Inc. in Montreal, the leading network for commercial and military aircraft training. So thank you for joining us. Up next, we have Gouda. After graduating from Western Engineering, Gouda spent time pursuing experience in account management and manufacturing within the aerospace industry. Following this, he decided to do his MBA, officially joined the SAP in 2012. At SAP, he spent almost a decade in operations, strategy, and transformation at all levels of the organization. More recently, he joined the Canadian team to become an enterprise customer success partner, a critical role in supporting accounts and enabling customer success. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, we have Erica. Erica completed her degree in green process engineering in 2016, and then chemical engineering master's in 2018. Erica currently works in renewable energy product development at Stormfisher. Before joining Stormfisher, Erica was an operations intern at Nova Chemicals, an improvement EIT at Dow and Capex, and a utility manager at Labatt Brewing Company. So thanks for joining us, Erica. Next, we have Bessem. Bessem is the Director of Fan Insights at Toronto Blue Jays. In his role on the strategy and analytics team, Bessem is responsible for ensuring that business decisions are informed by accountable action insights, and that all strategies and initiatives are rooted in a deep understanding of the Blue Jays fans. In 2008, Bessem graduated from Western with a Bachelor's of Engineering Science in Computer Engineering and a BA in Globalization Studies. While at Western, Bessem was heavily involved in the Engineering Orientation Week, the UES, and the Canadian Federation of Engineering Students. So welcome, Bessem. Up next, we have Noor. Noor graduated from Western University with a Bachelor's in Electrical Engineering in 2018. She is currently a systems engineer at Cisco, supporting financial, real estate, and manufacturing customers. Her role involves designing technical solutions to help organizations transform their business in networking, security, collaboration, cloud, and programmability. During her time at Western, Noor completed a 16-month internship at Hydro One, where she explored the power systems industry and grew her interpersonal and professional skills. Outside of work, she serves as the Director of Technology at Camp Engies, a nonprofit organization and aimed at enabling girls to explore careers in STEM. So welcome, Noor. And last but not least, we have Katrina. Katrina graduated from her chemical engineering degree back in 2020 with an internship as well. Katrina is a strong advocate for supporting young women and Indigenous youth who want to pursue STEM careers. She's been working in the oil and gas industry for a year and a half now, and more specifically at Imperial Oil, supporting their aromatics unit, which focuses on the manufacturing of BTX chemicals, as well as their offsite unit, which has a strong focus on water treatment. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen at the moment so that we can really highlight those alumni who have joined us today. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask them, you are more than welcome to type it in the chat or raise your hand. I will start off with a question for each one to answer. And that question is to think about what the greatest success you have had within your professional career. So for some of you, your career is a little bit newer than others, but I think it's still really important to highlight any success that you might have had. So is there someone who would like to start us off? Or I can start with EC because she's to my left.
Alphabetical. All right. Yeah. Hi guys. I'm Izzy. The greatest success. What's hard? Yeah, the greatest success I'd probably say was in my professional career was moving from aircraft manufacturing to the simulation world. Since my time on the Formula Racing team, I kind of knew that my passion lay in design and simulation. And I was able to get a kind of taste of that in my master's at Ryerson through the development of my thesis. But right after that, I moved to working at Bombardier in Toronto, which is mainly manufacturing and kind of what I wanted to get away from when I did my internship at Western. I really suggest you do an internship. You really get a chance from the beginning, like from the start, to kind of get a taste of what you like and what you don't like. So when I heard about CAE and that they are, you know, kind of leader in simulation, I knew I wanted to join them. So, you know, I overhauled the resume, started studying after work to be able to, and applying for positions because I knew that there was it was a pretty technical interview I would have to take, and ended up getting my first position at the company as a flight system specialist. And it's been pretty, not always glamorous, but pretty rewarding since I've been able to travel for work. I was in China last summer for a project and in Spain at the beginning of 2020. And even if I had to, you know, move from Toronto and make new friends, and I have the language barrier in Quebec, highly suggest you practice your French if you want to go into aerospace, especially in Canada. And in general, it's very good to have another language under your belt. But it's all but worth the experience, I find. I really found myself in Quebec. And so yeah, I think that's been my greatest success.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Erica, would you like to go next?
Yeah, no problem. I think this is an interesting question for me because my instinct is to kind of, maybe like some other engineers mentioned, like different like aha moments I've had like in my career, like technical problem solving related things. But I don't know, I think recently I was kind of coming to the realization that I've been really lucky to develop like a really important group of friends and mentors over the last few companies that I've worked for, and who I'm still in touch with now and talk to regularly. And I had a bit of like a paradigm shift where I realized like, oh, this is like what networking is. Because like when I was younger, I kind of thought networking sounded like cold and like a little bit fake and not like something I was interested in. But I'm realizing now, like having friends across different companies and across different industries and people that I can like bounce ideas off of is really useful.
Mm-hmm.
But apart from it just being useful for me, like I've been able to like coach friends of mine, like preparing for interviews in different industries or like helping them get like their foot in the door in a company, and even helping like mentors of mine like with personal problems that like come up in their lives, like things like that. I'm finding now are very deeply satisfying to me. And it's like, I feel like I've sort of like had my own like aha moment where I'm like, oh, this is like good quality networking. Like I'm really happy about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you're part of a bigger community, right? Like not just the company that you work at or your family, but you've been able to have those spider webs that reach out and really continue that team spirit that we always say engineering is.
Yeah, exactly.
Great, thank you. Katrina, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so I think for myself, kind of bringing it back a bit to basics too, is I think one of the biggest successes for me is really just having the role that I'm in currently. You know, graduating from Western alone is a huge success. And, you know, myself and probably a lot of other folks are first generation students that go to post-secondary. So that was the case for myself. So I thought that was an extreme success for my family, for loved ones. I'm also, I self-identify as being an Indigenous. So I think that that's a huge success as well, that you know, I have graduated from engineering. I am starting to put down some roots at the beginning of my career and hoping to one day become a practicing engineer, a licensed engineer. So I think really just the fundamentals of achieving, you know, the degree and being in a good industry to practice engineering. I'm in the oil and gas industry. I think it kind of speaks volumes. So I'm very proud of that. And I see that as being one of the biggest successes I have right now.
That's awesome. I feel like sometimes we don't celebrate the degree itself, which is a huge accomplishment. The amount of energy and time that everyone puts into it. So thank you.
Thanks.
Gouda, would you like to share what your biggest success has been?
Sure, was that me?
Yeah.
It's pronounced Godam.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you for letting me know.
So I'll probably echo a lot of what Erica actually mentioned. I think there's a few aha moments that I think were very important for me. Number one was probably the realization that being genuine and authentic is something you have to work at, not something that's inherent, right? So when she was talking about networking, things like that, I always thought networking is an exercise in being someone else and not myself. But the most effective networkers at the end of the day are the ones that are very genuine and honest about what they're looking for and genuinely interested about the people that they're meeting.
Mhm.
I will also say the second thing is achieving work-life balance. I've been work from home since 2012, so this has been kind of a long journey, exercise of working from home and being effective. Partly because I work for a global company, and going into a Canadian office makes less sense over the last 10 years or so. So being able to work really hard, being efficient, while still being able to have a family and take time off and stay connected with my friends was a big aha moment. And the last thing I would say is recognizing that it's more important to find skills and experiences than positions and wealth. That realization was a big thing because one leads to the other. And if you focus on the wrong things too early, you could be set down in the wrong path. So I've been very fortunate in every job that I've had. I can tell you exactly what type of skills I was seeking and experiences I was looking for and how I achieved it, right? From every move that I made, and everything seemed like a logical story. It seems like a logical story, right? As I've gone through my career.
Great, thank you. I did have a follow-up question. So you said you've been working home since 2012, and I know virtual learning is new for our students. So what were some of the strategies that you had to learn or utilize nowadays to create that work-life balance?
Well, I mean, work-life balance has to do with being at home, right? So like, whereas if I was going into the office, instead of taking a break and kind of bothering other folks around me, instead I'm going to hug my kid or doing laundry, right? So that kind of plays into it. I think one of the biggest things with working from home and being virtual in general is being very purposeful about the people you meet and networking in a virtual environment is kind of awkward. So that is certainly a skill I had to develop and become efficient with, right, in order to do my daily work. The last thing I would say is that finding time to disconnect. One of the biggest problems with working from home and being at home is that it's very difficult to compartmentalize and separate work from home. And so I would be lying if that wasn't still a struggle, but taking time to yourself and a break in between from work life to home life is really important. And making sure that you're consistent with that break is key.
Thank you. Bessem, would you like to share your greatest success?
Sure. I think greatest success is a big question, and I kind of hope that that's still to come. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some things that I'm proud of, I guess, through my career. And Gouda mentioned something interesting about having sort of a connected narrative. And I think there's a lot of talk about building your personal brand and who you are and what your career looks like. And sometimes those things can be deliberate, and sometimes they kind of come together. And when you have that moment of, oh, I have something that connects all the experiences in my professional life together, and even to some degree in my personal life, it becomes really powerful, I think. And for me, it was recognizing entrepreneurship as a skill. And I mean, it doesn't take the form of being my own boss or having a small business of my own. But when I look back at the roles that I've had and thinking about being the kid in the neighborhood who sold business cards door to door because we had a printer at home, and graduating and working for a small business and then moving into a larger enterprise that worked with a lot of small businesses, helped set me up for my current role where I was the first hire of my type. And so I was able to say that I have experience understanding what it's like to build something from scratch and the things that go into that and the challenges that come with it. And so that was really powerful in helping me get to where I am right now, which is in a super non-engineering role at the Blue Jays. But I would say that I'm still a good fit for this panel because I don't think that I'd be here if it wasn't for my engineering background. And so ultimately, I'm really proud of sort of having kind of learned a little bit about myself and been able to parlay that into something that was exciting and a rare experience, and to take that chance on something new. And even just doing that, even having to think about leaving a role that I'd been in for 7 years to try something that was a bit unknown, and making that jump is something that I'm really proud of. I think as a lot of engineers can think about a lot of the pros and cons and the cost benefit and the really logical analysis and that went into it. And sometimes it's also just a case of this feels like a thing that it's now or never, and we should go for it.
That's great. Thank you. And last but not least, Noor.
Right. So I think I can echo really what everyone else said, but specifically just, that stepping outside of your comfort zone, which I know sounds cliche, but quite frankly, for me, I spent 16 months at Hydro One and loved it. I remember coming back from my 4th year and being like, that's where I want to be, utility industry, power systems, I'm all for it, until I stumbled on the Cisco role, and it's more of a tech role in a sales organization. And I remember just going through the motion of, 5 different interviews to get the job, and a coding interview, which people who know me know that I'm not great with software. But I found that, recognizing that sometimes it takes courage to, step outside of your comfort zone. And as Bessem mentioned, going into the unknown. And it turned out to be one of the best decisions I've made. And I think that was one of the more successful decisions I've made in my career so far.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. One theme that I kind of saw between a few of you is networking and thinking about interviews. So is there any advice that you can give to future students about how to approach a technical interview versus a non-technical interview? What is something that helped you prepare for it, or I guess I think that's the way to put it. How to prepare for those types of situations, whether it be non-technical or a technical one. If you have any suggestions, feel free to unmute yourself and just jump on in.
I can jump in. I know for mine, whether it's technical or non-technical, one thing I found helpful is to reach out to people on LinkedIn. You know, you don't have to reach out to a hiring manager, but even someone who works on a team or has a job title similar to the one you're applying to, use the LinkedIn filters. They're often super effective. And get to talk to people who are in the role just to get some pointers. Oftentimes you might be lucky and even get a referral if you end up building, you know, a stronger connection with the person. For technical interviews in particular, I found that using like Udemy, Udacity, HackerRank for coding interviews in particular was super helpful to just get me familiar and comfortable with the process. And ultimately be transparent, whether it's technical, non-technical, specifically technical ones. If you don't know the answer, I found that it's usually better to just say, not familiar with this, but you know, would love to learn more about it. Usually shows that, you know, you're tenacious and you don't want to be in a situation where you know, start rambling about something that's irrelevant to the question. I think that would be the worst case scenario.
I see a couple laughing and nodding in agreement. Izzy, do you have a situation that resonates with that?
Oh, for sure. But I was going to add preparation for interviews, whether it's soft skills or technical skills. It's really good to, as Noor said, to try and find someone that has gone through the interview, whether it's a friend or pulling someone off of LinkedIn so that they can give you a rundown. A good way to prepare is really look for keywords in the job posting if it's for soft skills. You know, pull out the teamwork or, you know, fast learner or whatnot, and try and go back through your experiences and pull out key examples, key situations where you've used those skills or developed those skills. For technical, it's really, oh man, I'm like a hoarder. I think I still have all of my notes from university. Like, I don't think I should get them out of my parents' garage, but it's really good to keep those notes if you're going to go down the technical route. And yeah, just what Noor said, look out online, because there are definitely other people that have applied for a job like this, or this is the exact job that can help you out. Reddit is a very good resource for interview prep, I find, surprisingly.
And then current students, you also can reach out to Engineering Career Services. To highlight the idea of networking, I would like to invite everyone to put in the chat if you have any questions, because this is a great opportunity where you have 6 seasoned engineers and professionals that would be eager to answer any questions that you might have. While we wait for everyone to process the questions that they might have, my next one for the entire panel is, what is something that you wish you knew in university that would have helped you navigate the industry or just the workplace? So maybe we'll start with Bessem.
Sure. I guess one thing that I think about a little bit is, I wish I knew a little bit more about what jobs looked like. And it's a super kind of silly statement to say out loud, but I think there's sometimes a disconnect between what you're studying and and the application of that. And I think in my case, I never really went to engineering school expecting to be a sort of top end technical talent, but I think that when I started to think about the lifestyle that I wanted to have and the types of roles that I have, it was actually kind of different than the kind of engineering I studied, which was stuff that I was technically more interested in. And so I might have made a different decision about my subject. area, but I think anytime you can have some conversations with people about what the work really looks like and what the environment of those workplaces is, I think it's something that would have helped me a little bit at the time when I was trying to think about what kind of degree to pursue and what that would mean 3 years later.
That's fair. And I think even though you're not in an engineering role now, there were still skills that you would have learned in your degree that have helped shaped where you've ended up.
Definitely. And I think those were fairly, that was going to come true no matter what kind of engineering I did. But in terms of like civil engineering versus computer engineering, I found the subject matter much more interesting in computer engineering. But when I talked to my friends who've made careers in civil, a lot of those types of roles and lifestyles seem a lot more interesting to me. And that wasn't something that ever really came up when I was trying to make that decision in second year.
Yeah. So what do you think could have occurred within first/second year that would have helped you with that?
Yeah, I think career panels like this one or related to this one would have been helpful. I think even it doesn't have to have been live necessarily, but any way to work with professors to incorporate some more real life kind of example work into that. And I know some of the challenges with that, but at any point, sort of just having people with industry experience be around and be able to share that, even if it's people who are still students who have been on internship or sort of exchanging notes on summer jobs in some capacity, I think would have been really great.
Thank you. Erica, do you have something that you wish you knew when you were a student that would have helped you navigate the industry or your workplace?
Yeah, there's a lot of things.
The list is endless.
Yeah, it is a long list. I don't know what the most poignant ones are. I think one thing that I think about now is like up until my internship, like I did one between third and fourth year. Up until that point, I was really hard on myself as a student. I had like some friends who were absolutely brilliant and like getting like the top calculus grades, like the top thermo grades. And I'm just like doing fine, but like not as good as them. And it made me kind of stressed out. And I was like, is this the right field for me? Like, I used to want to be an architect. Maybe I should be doing that. Like, I don't know. And then I did the internship and then I was like, oh no, this is fine. It turns out I learned that, there's different ways of learning. And I know that we know that in theory, but that's like when I knew that in practice. Like for me, being a more visual learner, going out and working in operations in a plant where I like can see everything. I can like, in my case, like memorize what everything looks like, understand like what all the equipment sounds like, when it's operating well. Like these things are not the same thing as like studying in a classroom. And the, just the skills that I was learning on my internship and like the confidence that I gained in my internship really like set me up for like a really good final year of my undergrad. Like I was way less worried about whether I was in the right field. I was way kind of happier, if that makes sense. It was just, I had a really good experience too. So I was lucky in that way, but yeah, I wish I had known not to be so hard on myself for sure. Cause I was just like really stressed in my first 2 years or 3 years and didn't really need to be that stressed.
That's fair. I see a few of you nodding in agreement with Erica, so I'm going to take it as we were all a little hard on ourselves. Katrina, is there something that you wish that you had known a couple years ago?
I'm really going to echo the two sharings before me because I relate to both of them. I found that I was also pretty hard on myself in school, and I kind of underestimated my own ability to perform work at times. And I know we can get into the mindset of like, imposter syndrome and things like that. And I know a lot of young students probably still work through that, whether you're a student or even a professional. So I think one thing that I learned is that you don't need to know everything. I don't think it's ever expected on you to know everything when you're in a job, especially when you're starting out. So it's really important to remember that you will grow those skills. When I started, I remember I was very eager to just know everything and want to be able to be really far along in my learning of, you know, how does the operation work here, and how does everything connect together. But I've been here with the company for 1.5 years and I'm still learning every day. So I think it's really important to recognize that it takes time to grow a lot of skills. The things you learn in school are very much theoretical at the beginning, and it takes time to be able to apply that type of knowledge when you're in a workplace, especially if it's a very technical type of role. I also do wish that I knew about different types of roles, because you know, you think engineering, and for myself, chemical, I think right away oil and gas. But the reality is engineers can be used in, can work in so many different kinds of jobs. So that's something that I kind of wish I had more exposure to earlier on, but I'm still very happy with everything that's, you know, that I'm working with today.
I think one thing that I really resonate with is that even once you leave school, you're still learning. And as a student, I thought, okay, you finish your undergrad and then you go and you're kind of done with your learning. You just work and you implement it. And while I am working at a post-secondary institution, I am looking around at the staff that are here and the faculty, and they are continuously learning. And it's more about how you can grow as an individual and less about like check in, check out kind of thing. So I feel like I hope all of you will continue to find new ways to learn and explore your career. Is there anything, Gouda, that you would like to add as to something that you wish you knew when you were in university?
Yeah, probably 3 things. Probably real quick is bring work that you're very proud of to your interviews, and show your confidence. Don't just talk to it. Show your competence, don't just talk to it. I think second is it's more important to look like you're eager to learn than to talk about your competencies. And then the third is networking isn't just about finding a job. Networking is also important when finding your tribe within a company. So any new job that I join, I would probably spend the first month talking to 5 or 6 people a day that I don't know throughout the company, to find the people that I can ask stupid questions with, right? And that's kind of allowed me to get up to speed faster than most. I also want to maybe quickly address a question from Avery. What career mistake has taught you the biggest lesson? I would just say for me is working in a toxic environment for too long is not okay, right? Mm-hmm. So if your work or the people you're working with or the people that are managing you are kind of causing you mental distress, it makes no sense for you to stay long term. There are many jobs out there, many opportunities, many other things you can learn and do. Spending too much time in a place where you don't have a champion, where you're not kind of mentally well, is the worst thing you could do for your career, period.
I'm assuming you're speaking from experience with that. So if it is from experience, what pushed you to leave that toxic environment?
Yeah, it was just, it was literally, you know, you start cycling through and thinking about the problems day and night. You know, you're working stupid hours for no reason with more work coming your way. You recognize that, you know, if you left, the world wouldn't shake and change, right? I mean, those kind of things, right? Like, it's if you are burning out or you see yourself burning out, that's probably an indicator. When you know, and at that point in time, you're probably already too tired to make a change, but it's incredibly important to make a change, because people get stuck for years in toxic environments and see no movement in their career or their success. And that's just a shame.
I agree. Thank you for sharing. Is there anyone else who wants to kind of highlight Avery's question about what career mistake has taught you the biggest lesson? Go ahead, Izzy.
Yeah. Before I start, I just want to speak to Gautam's point about toxic environments. And I was going to say, as one of the things I learned is like, engineering is grinding. You grind through university, you grind through masters, and by the end of it, your mind is set in this the only way to work is to grind. And that's not how life is. It's like you need to break that mindset that every day you must grind. It's not it, or maybe grinding is your thing, and that's what you like to do, is to work hard, but it's fine to not do that. You need to learn to choose work over yourself at times. I mean, choose yourself over work. Oh my God. And put yourself over work before you slip into this pattern of just doing it forever, because then you burn yourself out, and it's, as Gautam said, it's impossible to move. But to Avery's question, it may not be a career mistake, but it was like a specific mistake in on the job that taught me that companies don't, that workplaces will, a good workplace will judge you on how you react to failure and not the actual failure in itself. Because how you react to that, how you communicate the failure, and how you bounce back from failure is really what defines you as a good employee, not the actual mistake that you made, I think, unless it was like, you know, burning down a building or something. But, you know, you really need to, in university, again, we get into this mindset, it's pass or fail, and you're graded by, you have that constant feedback, those grades, but you're not always going to get that in the workplace. So you need to be able to break the mindset of university that we're in. And finally, I just wanted to bounce back to Erica's about networking and about grades in school. Like, really talk to people, even if it's about you know, the problems they face, or maybe it's like for getting into a new job, but you'll find that you're not as alone as you think you are. Many people face the same or similar issues that you think that you're facing alone, but just being able to talk to someone about it and realize that they may be in the same boat, you can band together and, again, you know, continue that team sport, that team spirit that we had in university, and then help each other get to the next point in their career.
That's great. Thank you. One thing I do want to highlight too that I have noticed is that highlighting a failure and how you respond to it has become a pretty common interview question. And I remember the first time I was asked it, I was like, oh, you want me to talk about something where I messed up and own up to it? And I thought interviews were supposed to be positive, but it's true. They're really looking at how you've handled that situation and continued to carry on, because that speaks volumes as to the type of employee that you can be. Is there anyone else who wants to discuss a career mistake that has taught you a big lesson? That's okay.
I have one. I was just like deciding if I wanted to talk about it.
Sure, that's fair. Go ahead, Erica.
I think I wish I think there's one thing, and I wish that I had like thrown my weight around a little bit more sometimes in like past situations where I could like stick up for employees that I knew like weren't being treated fairly. It's a tricky one because on the one hand, you're kind of putting your own position or your own like influence in a company kind of in front of people, and like, you know, it's a risky thing to do. But the only thing that I think I ever have regretted in my career to date has been like not doing it more. So I know every experience is going to be different, and not everyone can do that, or the calculation might not work out for you and you think this is too risky, I can't do it. That's fine. Like I don't really judge anyone for that. But in my case, like I wish I had kind of fought a little bit harder for people I knew that were not getting treated well.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to stand up for yourself and someone else, and almost feel like your status within the company could be threatened. So really being confident in your abilities and who you are as a person to do that. And I think that this kind of ties in a little bit to Julia's question in the chat of, has there ever been an instance where someone said or did something that made you feel like you didn't belong in your position? And how did you react? So I'll kind of leave that open to all of you. You might have to think a little bit as to the past years to see if there's anything that kind of applies to that question.
I think the key is to know yourself better than other people.
Mm-hmm.
Be very honest about what you can or cannot accomplish, and to always be helpful and ask how you can help others. So
Mm-hmm.
if you can get to that point, a question like that shouldn't phase you, because we're all dealing with some level of imposter syndrome in any job that you're in. The question is, how quickly can you get up to speed, and how can you add value in your role thrown away the other? I would also say that just sometimes people suck. And so if someone is actually telling you that you don't belong or whatever, stay very, very far away from a person like that. That person is going nowhere, and that person should have no hold on you whatsoever.
Thank you. I think one of the biggest professional lessons that I have learned is that just because you don't have time to do something, or you don't feel like you have the capabilities to do it, doesn't mean that you're failing at your job. You just need to ask for help and reach out to the people that can support you in your team. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to Julia's question?
I think I'll share a thought here. My role is a generalist, so I actually cover like anything that Cisco has, any solution that they offer, I'm supposed to know about it. So oftentimes I feel like the dumb person in the room, like 90% of the time. My customers that I work with have like 20 years of experience in the industry, and here I am presenting to them like a technical solution. I think oftentimes like it's fast to like jump to the defensive mode. I'm not sure if this question, if I'm understanding it correctly, but from my end, like if someone said or, commented about like my capabilities in a certain area that I need to improve on, I try to look at it first as like feedback. Now, of course, it all depends on the context, but for me, it's also important to recognize when it's feedback and it's, constructive criticism, and when it's like an attack on you. And thankfully, at least I've been at Cisco for 4 years and never felt that, I didn't belong. If anything, there were roles that, I've applied to that required way more experience, years and experience that I had, yet the managers still encouraged me. I had mentors and sponsors that rallied around me and pushed me. So to echo some of the points that were mentioned earlier, like you're more aware of what your strength and what your weaknesses are. So if someone intended to say something that was to be more hurtful or to diminish or to devalue your experience, it shouldn't affect you if you're assertive and you know what you know and you know what you don't know. So.
Mm-hmm. All really good advice, and something that might be easier said than done, but something that we can all push towards.
Yeah, I mean, if I can build on that, I think
Yeah.
there's also something to be said about looking at how you're, if it's coming from your peers and colleagues versus clients or things like that, thinking about how the people around you respond. And as Erica was saying, I think earlier, when it's happening to people that aren't you, what are you able to do to support them? And I think it comes in different forms. And, if you're sort of at the center of it, you can be assertive in the moment, but that's sometimes hard. And hopefully you have managers and peers that you can go to afterwards to talk about. But if it's happening to somebody around you, think about some of the tactics that you can use to sort of deflect or call attention to that. I remember being in numerous conversations where for some reason all the questions were coming to me, even though I wasn't the expert in the room, and not being afraid to say, I don't know why you're asking me this. Julia's the expert. You should be directing your questions to her. And finding a way to show support in that way or in ways along those lines is really big, and it costs you very little, hopefully, especially as you advance in your career. I think one of the more fun things to do is to be a sort of more senior voice in the room and say, listen, I'm not afraid to ask what could be a really stupid question. Please humor me, and you get that question out the door, and hopefully it can provide some cover for the people who really need to know the answer. I've been fortunate in my career that it's not, I haven't felt like I've been in many exclusionary situations or places where I was doubted or felt like I didn't belong. But, I think that's not necessarily true for, say, my parents or things like that. And so trying to do what you can where you can to be a good ally to the people around you is always going to be impactful and worth the discomfort in the moment.
For sure. Thank you. So we only have a few minutes left, and I know some people might have class at 1:30. So the last question that I'm going to kind of share with all of you is just if you could list, not necessarily list, but say like 1 to 2 sentences as to where you hope your career goes over the next 5 to 10 years. So maybe we'll start with Katrina.
I think for myself, right now, being newer, more junior in my role, I really want to focus on the next short term, continuing to develop those technical skills, building a solid base. I do know I have a strong suit in soft skills as well, so perhaps pursuing something with management, but I'm very open to all kinds of roles. So thankfully, there's lots of different opportunities with the company that I'm working with, which is great. So yeah, gonna see where things go from there.
Thank you. Erica?
So far in my career, I've been working in like petrochemical and like food and beverage and things like that. But my ultimate goal has always been to work in renewable energy, which I'm finally now in. And so my goal is really simple. It's like learn this industry. It's like a brand new industry. It has its own language, its own like set of acronyms, its own like players and everything. And I think like I'm going to be busy enough for the next 5 years, just like learning the differences and similarities between this industry and everywhere else that I've worked so far. But I hope maybe at the end I'll at least, I'm looking for a spot to like develop like a niche, like technical expertise type of role. So hopefully I find one that would be a nice thing to kind of aim for, I think.
Great, thank you. And then Izzy.
Yeah, so I've spent many years in aerospace because it was my goal after I left school, and I've found out it's extremely niche, unfortunately. So the next few years, it's going to be working on diversifying myself because, next few months, I guess. I found the industry to be cyclical and fragile at times, and well, especially during COVID. And competitive in ways that don't interest me at my point in life, at this point in life. So it's next few months is working on moving to a different industry, whether it's within CAE and trying to become a more technical software developer, or altogether leaving the industry and moving to software development. While this is a type of change that's kind of confusing and scary at this time, it's great because at the same time while I don't know exactly what I want to do, all of it is like it's a field of options that I have. It's just about figuring out what the next passion is or the next goal and going for it.
Thank you. And then Noor.
Yeah, so similar to Katrina, I want to explore people leadership. I've had multiple opportunities to mentor new grads and other employees within Cisco. And I know I'm still fairly young, but I made it known to everyone and anyone at Cisco that this is my ultimate goal. So I found that it helped me identify some of the gaps and also get other perspectives on what I need to do to get there. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Great, thank you. Bessem.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know. I mean, I know that for me, the pandemic, and especially the last year of it, has been really challenging. And so my horizon's a little bit shorter in terms of making sure I spend some time on myself and really sort of think about what that next 5-year period is going to look like. But ultimately want to be in a place where I'm learning and surrounded by people that can enrich me. And for me, that's sort of the big piece. World Series championship in the next couple of years would be great too, but I have less control over that one. So.
Thank you. Yeah, not knowing can be a scary thought, but also an exciting one. So good luck with that. And then last but not least, Gouda.
Yeah, I'll probably echo what Bessem says. As a policy, I do not plan 10 years out, and anybody that successfully predicted where they'll be 10 years, later is a liar, as far as I'm concerned. So I'll say maybe every, I'll plan out maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years max. In all honesty, I'm at a stage in my life where I'm focusing on my family, work-life balance, trying to get settled and kind of enjoy my family growing. So that is all I'm thinking about.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you. So I just want to close out by thanking our panelists for joining us today. And then I'm going to quickly share with all of you just a slide to thank our partners. So National Engineering Month and OSPE have organized events that happen across the area. So it's not just today's event. So if there's others that you're interested in, make sure you take a look at the website. And again, I want to thank our alumni for joining us, as it means a lot that you have taken the time out of your busy work day to spend it with all of us. So thanks again, and I hope you all have a great afternoon and weekend.